My little brother vanished when he was 6. 10 years later, an unknown number called. He whispered, "It's me, it's Ethan." Then he told me the name of the man who took him, someone who had sat at our table and cried at the search party. The phone rang at 2:47 a.m. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. My thumb hovered over the decline button while my brain processed that nobody calls at this hour unless someone's dead or dying. I answered on the 4th ring. My voice came out rough with sleep. Hello? Silence. Not dead air, but breathing slow and deliberate like someone gathering courage. Then a voice I hadn't heard in a decade whispered my name. "Sigh, it's me. It's Ethan." My entire body went cold. I sat up so fast the room spun. My heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to escape. "That's not funny," I said. My voice cracked. "Whoever this is, that's not funny. I know you don't believe me," the voice continued. It was deeper than I remembered, but the cadence was right. The slight lisp on the S sounds that speech therapy never quite fixed. "Ask me something only Ethan would know." My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. I thought about hanging up. I thought about calling the police. Instead, I heard myself ask, "What did you hide in the treehouse before you disappeared?" The treehouse Dad built behind our house when I was 8 and Ethan was 6. The one that got torn down 3 years after he vanished because Mom couldn't stand looking at it anymore. The voice on the other end exhaled shakily. "Your diary," he said. "The one where you wrote about Rebecca Flores. You said you loved her, but you were too scared to talk to her. You drew hearts around her name. I buried it under the loose board in the corner because you said if Mom found it, you'd die." The phone slipped from my fingers and hit the mattress. I grabbed it back with both hands. My vision was tunneling. "Ethan, Jesus Christ. Ethan, where are you? Are you okay? Where have you been?" "I'm not okay," he said quietly. "I haven't been okay for 10 years, but I'm alive, and I need you to listen very carefully because I don't have much time. They monitor the phones. I stole this one from a supply closet, but they'll figure it out soon." "Who's they?" I demanded. "Ethan, who took you? Where are you? I'll come get you right now. Just tell me where." His breath hitched like he was crying. "You can't just come get me," he said. "It's not that simple. There are procedures, systems. If you just show up, they'll move me. They'll disappear me somewhere worse. You have to do this the right way." My mind was racing. 10 years ago, Ethan was 6 years old. We'd been at the park 3 blocks from our house. Mom had sent me to watch him while she ran errands. I was 16 and annoyed about babysitting instead of hanging out with friends. I'd been on my phone texting Rebecca Flores trying to work up courage to ask her out. Ethan had been on the swings. I'd looked up and he was gone. Just gone. No screaming, no struggle. Security footage from a nearby gas station showed a white van circling the park twice before Ethan disappeared. No plates visible. No other leads. The FBI investigated for 18 months. They found nothing. My parents divorced 2 years later. Dad moved to Oregon. Mom started drinking. I dropped out of college to take care of her. 10 years of guilt and grief and what-ifs that never got answered. "Ethan," I said. My voice was barely above a whisper. "Just tell me what to do. Tell me how to find you." "You remember Coach Sullivan?" he asked. The question hit me like a punch to the stomach. Of course I remembered Coach Sullivan. He'd coached our youth soccer team. He'd driven us to games when Dad was working. He'd come to Ethan's 6th birthday party 2 weeks before he disappeared. He'd been at the search parties. He'd helped put up missing posters with my parents. He'd cried at the press conference when Mom begged whoever took Ethan to bring him home. Coach Sullivan took me. Ethan said his voice was flat now, empty. He took me, and he kept me. He's been keeping me for 10 years, and I'm not the only one. My stomach lurched. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. The phone was still pressed to my ear. I could hear Ethan breathing on the other end. When I could speak again, I asked, "Where are you?" "His house," Ethan said. "The one on Maple Street. You've been there dozens of times. You ate dinner at his table. You swam in his pool. You slept in his guest room during the team sleepover. I was underneath you the whole time. My legs gave out. I sank to the bathroom floor. Under? There's a room," Ethan explained. "Under the garage. Soundproofed, climate-controlled. He built it himself 20 years ago. The entrance is hidden behind the water heater. There are 6 of us down here right now. The youngest is 4. He's had her for 8 months. Her name was Lily Garcia before he took her. He calls her 13 now. That's what he does. He gives us numbers instead of names. I'm 7. I want to throw up again, but there was nothing left. "Corey," he continued. His voice was urgent now. "You need to call the FBI, not the local police. He has friends in the department. That's how he's gotten away with it for so long. He knows when investigations get too close. He knows how to redirect them. You need to call Special Agent Victoria Ramos. She's with the Child Exploitation Task Force. Her direct number is in the FBI directory. Tell her everything I'm telling you. Tell her about the room under the garage. Tell her about the water heater entrance. Tell her he keeps the key on a chain around his neck. Tell her she needs to come now because he's planning to move us soon." "How do you know all this?" I asked. "How do you know about Agent Ramos? How do you know he's planning to move you?" "Because I've been watching," Ethan said. "I've been listening. I've been preparing for 10 years. He thinks we're broken. He thinks we're too scared to fight back. But I've been keeping track of everything. Every name he mentions, every phone call he makes. Every time he brings someone new down here, I've been scratching it all into the wall behind my mattress where he can't see. Dates, names, details, everything the FBI will need to connect him to every child he's ever taken." "And Corey?" "Yeah, when they come," he said when they raid the house. "He's going to try to destroy destroy evidence. He has a protocol. There's a furnace down here. Industrial strength. He can incinerate everything in minutes. The FBI needs to cut the power to the house before they breach. If they don't, he'll kill us all and burn the bodies. He's done it before. My hands were numb. How many? I whispered. How many has he killed? I don't know, Ethan said. His voice broke. More than 12, maybe more than 20. There are names on the wall from before I got here. Kids who just stopped being in the rooms one day. He told me they got adopted out, that they went to good families, but I found the furnace logs. I found the dates. I know what he did. A sound came through the phone. Distant but distinct. A door opening. Footsteps. I have to go, Ethan said frantically. He's coming. Call Agent Ramos. Tell her everything. Tell her to come before sunrise. That's when he's planning to move us. Tell her I'm alive. Tell Mom I never stopped loving her. Ethan, wait. I started. The line went dead. I called Agent Victoria Ramos at 3:15 a.m. The FBI switchboard operator tried to tell me she wasn't available. I told him it was about Ethan Parker, the 6-year-old who vanished from Henderson Park 10 years ago. The line went silent for exactly 8 seconds. Then Agent Ramos picked up. This is Ramos, she said. Her voice was alert despite the hour. Who is this? My name is Corey Parker, I said. My little brother Ethan disappeared 10 years ago. He just called me. He told me who took him and where he is. I told her everything. Every word Ethan had said, every detail about Coach Sullivan, the house on Maple Street, the room under the garage, the water heater entrance, the other children, the numbers instead of names, the furnace, the plan to move them at sunrise. Agent Ramos didn't interrupt once. When I finished, there was a long pause. Mr. Parker, she said carefully, do you still have the number your brother called from? I checked my call log. Yes, I said. I'm sending you a secure link, she said. Forward that number to me immediately. Don't call it back. Don't text it. Just send me the number. She paused. If this is real, if your brother really called you, we need to move fast. But I need you to understand something. If this is a hoax, if someone is playing a sick game, I will find out and there will be consequences. This is real, I said. My voice was steady now. Anger was burning through the shock. My brother is alive. He's been alive this whole time, and that monster has had him, and you need to get him out. We will, she said. Stay by your phone. Don't go anywhere. Don't contact anyone else. I'll call you back within the hour. She hung up. I didn't stay by my phone. I grabbed my keys and drove to Maple Street. Coach Sullivan's house was a modest 2-story colonial with blue shutters and a neat lawn. The driveway was empty. The windows were dark. I parked 2 houses down and stared at the place. How many times had I been here? 20? 30? I'd eaten Mrs. Sullivan's lasagna. I'd played video games in their living room. I'd used their bathroom. I'd been feet away from my brother and never knew. The front door opened. My heart stopped. Coach Sullivan walked out. He was in sweatpants and a t-shirt. He went to the mailbox at the end of the driveway, checked inside, found it empty. He looked up and down the street. For a second, I thought he was looking right at me, but his gaze passed over my car without stopping. He went back inside. My phone rang. Agent Ramos. Mr. Parker. She said, where are you? Her voice was sharp. Home. I lied. She didn't believe me. Your phone's GPS says you're on Maple Street. I told you to stay home. I need to see. I said, I need to know it's real. Listen to me very carefully. She said, you need to leave that area right now. If Sullivan sees you, if he suspects anything, he could panic. He could hurt the children. He could destroy evidence. You could get your brother killed. Do you understand? I understand, I said, but I couldn't move. I was staring at the house, at the garage attached to the left side. Somewhere under that garage was my brother. A tactical team is en route, Ramos continued. ETA 23 minutes. We're coordinating with the power company to kill electricity to the house. We have a warrant. We have snipers. We have medics. We have everything we need. What we don't need is a civilian compromising the operation. Go home. I didn't go home. I drove around the block and parked on the parallel street. I cut through a neighbor's yard and approached Sullivan's house from behind. The backyard was fenced, but I climbed over. I crouched behind the pool shed. The house was still dark. I could see the garage from this angle. There was a regular garage door facing the driveway, but there was also a side door. That door was steel, industrial, not standard for a residential garage. It had 3 deadbolts visible from where I crouched. My phone buzzed. Text from Ramos. Leave now. This is your final warning. I put the phone on silent. The side door opened. Coach Sullivan stepped out. He was carrying something heavy, a large duffel bag. He threw it in the back of a pickup truck I hadn't noticed before. It was parked on the far side of the garage, hidden from street view. He went back inside. My phone was vibrating constantly. Ramos calling over and over. I ignored it. Sullivan came out again. Another duffel bag, then another. 3 total, each one bulky and awkward. He closed the truck's tailgate. He checked his watch. He looked around the yard. I pressed myself flat against the shed. He pulled out his phone and made a call. I couldn't hear what he was saying. He was gesturing, arguing with someone. He hung up. He went back inside. The garage door started to open. I realized with horror what was happening. He was leaving. He was moving them early. The raid wasn't for another 15 minutes. He'd know. Somehow, he'd known. I did the only thing I could think of. I ran to his truck. I pulled out my keys. I slashed all 4 tires as fast as I could. The sound of air hissing was loud in the quiet night. Too loud. The garage door stopped halfway up. Sullivan's voice shouted something from inside. I ran. I didn't make it to the fence before he came out. He saw me. "Sigh," he said. His voice was confused, then sharp. "What the hell are you doing here?" I turned to face him. My hands were shaking, but I raised them. "Stay back," I said. "The FBI is coming. They know everything. Just let them go. Let the kids go." His expression changed. Confusion shifted to understanding. Understanding shifted to cold calculation. "You talked to 7, he said. It wasn't a question. That little Yari found a phone. He's smarter than I gave him credit for. He started walking toward me. "I'm disappointed in you, Corey. I really am. I thought you were better than this." "Better than what?" I shouted. "Better than trying to save my brother. Better than stopping you from raping children." He stopped walking. His face was calm, too calm. "Is that what you think this is about?" he asked. "You think I'm some kind of monster? You don't understand what I do here. These kids have nowhere else to go. They're broken, damaged. The system failed them. I give them structure, discipline, purpose. You're insane." I said Ethan had a family. Lily Garcia had a family. "You stole them." He laughed. It was a cold sound. "Ethan's family was broken before I took him." He said, "Your parents were getting divorced. Your dad was never home. Your mom was falling apart. And you were too busy chasing girls to watch your own brother." I gave him stability. I gave him consistency. I taught him respect. He shook his head. "You should be thanking me. I kept him alive when he would have fallen through the cracks." Sirens distant, but getting closer. Sullivan heard them too. He looked toward the street, then back at me. "You've made a terrible mistake," he said. He moved fast, faster than a man his age should move. He closed the distance between us in 3 strides. His hand clamped around my throat. I tried to punch him, but he twisted. And suddenly, I was on the ground with his knee on my chest. I couldn't breathe. He was crushing my windpipe. "You're going to be the reason they die," he hissed. His face was inches from mine. I was going to let them live. I was going to relocate them safely. But now I have to clean up this mess, and that means no witnesses. His hand moved to his pocket. He pulled out a knife. The sirens were louder now, multiple vehicles screeching to stops out front. Sullivan looked up, looked back at me, smiled. "At least you'll die knowing you tried," he said. He raised the knife. A gunshot cracked through the air. Sullivan jerked. His eyes went wide. He looked down at his chest. Blood bloomed across his shirt. He fell sideways off me. I gasped for air, rolled away from him. FBI tactical agent swarmed the yard. Red laser dots everywhere. Hands pulled me up, pulled me back. "Are you injured?" Someone was shouting. "Can you walk?" I nodded. Couldn't speak yet. My throat felt crushed. Agent Ramos was there. She looked furious. "You could have gotten everyone killed," she said. Then she turned to her team. "Breach the garage now. Cut the power first." Someone was putting me in an ambulance. I tried to push them away. "I'm fine," I croaked. "My brother, you need to get my brother." "They're getting him," a paramedic said. "Just let us check you out." I sat in the ambulance and watched. Tactical teams entered through every door. The house went dark. Power cut. Seconds later, agents emerged from the garage carrying children. Small bodies wrapped in blankets. Some were crying. Some were silent. All of them looked too thin, too pale, too scared. I counted them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6th one was bigger, older. He had dark hair like mine. Same build, same walk. Even after 10 years, I recognized him instantly. Ethan. I tried to get up. The paramedic held me back. "Sir, you need to stay seated. Let them do their job." Ethan was looking around frantically. His eyes found mine. He froze. We stared at each other across 50 FT of lawn. FBI agents and paramedics moving between us like a river. Ethan's face crumbled. He started crying. He tried to run to me, but an agent caught him gently, held him back. "We need to check you first, buddy. Make sure you're okay." Ethan was shaking his head, reaching for me. "That's my brother," he was saying. "That's Corey. Please let me talk to him." Agent Ramos looked at me, looked at Ethan, nodded to the agent holding him. "Make it quick." Ethan ran to the ambulance. He crashed into me. His arms wrapped around me so tight I couldn't breathe again. But this time, I didn't care. I held him. He was taller than I expected, almost my height, but he was so thin I could feel every bone. He smelled like industrial soap and fear. He was sobbing into my shoulder. "I thought you wouldn't believe me," he choked out. "I thought you'd think I was crazy." "I believed you," I said. My voice was rough. I believed every word. We stayed like that until the paramedics insisted on separating us. Ethan was taken to one ambulance. I was kept in another. Both of us were driven to the hospital. Different rooms, different doctors. I was treated for bruising to my throat and released after 2 hours. Ethan was admitted. The doctor said he needed observation, needed psychological evaluation, needed time. I called my mom from the hospital. It was 6:01 in the morning. She answered on the first ring like she did every morning, always hoping, always waiting for news. "Mom," I said, "they found him." Silence. Then a sound I'd never heard from her before, a wail that was half joy and half grief. "They found him," she repeated. "Is he alive? Is he okay?" "He's alive." I said, "He's at County General. He's okay. He's going to be okay." I heard her collapse, heard the phone hit the floor, heard her screaming for our neighbor, heard chaos. 5 minutes later, she called back from her neighbor's car. They were already driving to the hospital. "Is it really him?" she kept asking. "Are you sure it's really Ethan?" "It's him," I said. "It's really him." Dad called an hour later. He was in Oregon. He'd seen the news. Coach Sullivan dead in FBI raid. 6 children recovered. One of them identified as Ethan Parker, missing 10 years. Dad was crying. He never cried. "I'm coming home," he said. "I'm getting on a plane right now." The FBI kept us separated for 36 hours while they processed the scene and interviewed Ethan. Agent Ramos told me later what they found. The room under the garage was exactly as Ethan described. 6 mattresses on the floor, a furnace, industrial supplies, a wall covered in scratched notes, names, dates, and details documenting 23 years of kidnapping. Ethan had been meticulous. He'd recorded everything, every child Sullivan had taken, every time he'd moved them, every close call with police. The notes led investigators to 3 other properties Sullivan owned under shell companies. They found remains at 2 of them. 17 children confirmed dead. DNA testing ongoing. The media called it the largest child trafficking case in state history. Coach Sullivan became a monster in headlines, but Ethan became something else. A survivor, a hero. The boy who saved 5 other children by being smart enough to document everything. Mom wasn't allowed to see Ethan until the FBI finished their initial interviews. When she finally got into his room, she collapsed at his bedside. She held his hand and sobbed for an hour. Ethan cried too, but mostly he just stared at her like he was trying to memorize her face, like he was afraid she'd disappear. She kept saying, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I let this happen." Ethan kept saying, "It wasn't your fault. You didn't know. None of us knew." Dad arrived the next day. The reunion was harder. Ethan barely remembered him. Dad had been a ghost in his memory, a face that faded over 10 years. They sat together awkwardly. Dad tried to talk about the past. Ethan didn't remember most of it. Finally, Dad just asked, "What do you need? What can I do?" Ethan said, "Just be here. Just stay." So, Dad stayed. The other children were reunited with their families over the next week. Lily Garcia, who Sullivan called 13, was returned to parents who'd never stopped searching. A boy named Marcus Webb had been missing for 3 years. His mother had died during that time from a heart attack. Investigators believed it was grief-related. 2 other children had been reported as runaways. Nobody had looked for them seriously. One child had no family. She'd been taken from foster care. The system hadn't noticed she was gone. The FBI worked with child services to place her somewhere safe. Ethan asked about her constantly, wanted to make sure she was okay, wanted to make sure she ended up somewhere better than where she'd been. He felt responsible for all of them. Agent Ramos told him he'd saved their lives. He said he should have found a way to save the others, too, the ones who died. Ethan came home after 2 weeks. Mom had converted the dining room into a bedroom for him. She didn't want him upstairs alone, didn't want him isolated. The first night he sat at the kitchen table and just looked around. "This is different," he said. "You repainted." Mom nodded. 5 years ago. The living room, too. Ethan touched everything carefully like he was relearning the house. He stopped at the photo wall in the hallway. Pictures of him as a baby, as a toddler at his 6th birthday party. The last photo taken before he disappeared. He stared at that one for a long time. "I don't remember being that kid," he said quietly. "I don't remember being happy like that." "You'll remember eventually," Mom said, but her voice was shaking. Some things came back quickly. Ethan remembered the layout of the house, remembered his favorite foods, remembered our old dog who died 8 years ago. Other things were gone completely. He didn't remember Dad's voice, didn't remember whole years of his early childhood. The doctor said trauma did that, made the brain protect itself by erasing things. The nightmares started after the first week. Ethan would wake up screaming. He'd be disoriented, violent sometimes. He threw a lamp at me one night because he thought I was Sullivan. He apologized for hours afterward. I told him it was okay. It wasn't okay. Nothing about this was okay, but we were learning to navigate it. Therapy helped some. Ethan saw a specialist 3 times a week, someone who worked with trauma survivors, someone who understood what 10 years of captivity did to a developing brain. The therapist said Ethan had aged differently than other kids. He'd been forced to mature faster in some ways, but he'd been stunted in others. He'd never learned social skills, never been to a real school, never had friends his age. He was 16, but he seemed both older and younger simultaneously. The trial preparations began 6 months later. The prosecution was building a case against Sullivan's estate and any accomplices who might have helped him. They needed Ethan to testify. He said he would. He wanted to, but the lawyers warned it would be brutal. Defense attorneys would try to discredit him, would claim he was coached, would argue his memories were unreliable. Agent Ramos prepared him as best she could, explained what to expect, how to handle aggressive questioning, how to stay calm even when they tried to make him angry. Ethan listened to all of it. Then he said, "I've survived 10 years with a monster. I can survive a few lawyers." The trial lasted 3 weeks. Ethan testified for 2 days. He was calm, detailed, unshakable. He described the room, the routine, the punishments, the other children, the furnace, everything. The defense tried to break him, tried to suggest he'd been treated well, that Sullivan had provided food and shelter, that Ethan was exaggerating for sympathy. Ethan looked the defense attorney in the eye and said he cut out Marcus Webb's tongue when Marcus tried to scream. He burned Lily Garcia's hand on a stove when she refused to call him father. He kept us in darkness for days if we cried. He made us watch when he hurt the others. He told us we were numbers because names were for people and we weren't people anymore. We were his property. Is that treatment you'd accept for your children? The courtroom was silent. The defense attorney had no response. The jury convicted on all counts. Sullivan's estate was liquidated. Funds were distributed to the families of victims. Ethan received a settlement that would pay for college and therapy for life. He said he didn't want the money, wanted to donate donate it. Mom convinced him to keep it. You earned it by surviving. She said, use it to build the life he tried to take from you. Ethan struggled with normal life. High school was overwhelming. Too many people, too much noise, too much chaos. He lasted 3 months before having a panic attack in the cafeteria. We switched him to online school. He did better there, could work at his own pace, could take breaks when memories became too much. He excelled in some subjects. Math and science came easily. English was harder. Writing about feelings and experiences triggered things he wasn't ready to process. His teachers were patient, accommodating. They knew his story. Everyone knew his story. That was part of the problem. Ethan couldn't go anywhere without being recognized. The boy who survived 10 years. The boy who saved the other children. People treated him like he was fragile, like he might shatter if they spoke too loud. He hated it. Just treat me normal, he'd say. But nobody knew what normal looked like for him anymore. He reconnected with old friends from before he disappeared. Most of them had moved on, had new lives, new friends. They tried to include him, but the gap was too wide. They talked about school dances and football games and who was dating who. Ethan talked about surviving, about coping mechanisms, about testifying in court. The conversations never worked. Eventually, people stopped trying. Ethan withdrew, spent most of his time alone in his room. Mom worried constantly. The therapist said it was normal, said he needed time to figure out who he was now, who he wanted to be, said pushing him to socialize before he was ready would backfire. So, we gave him space, but I made sure to check on him every day, made sure he knew I was there, made sure he knew he wasn't alone anymore. Some days he'd talk, other days he'd just nod. Both were okay. The other children had mixed outcomes. Lily Garcia seemed to bounce back quickly. She returned to school, made friends. Her parents said she had nightmares, but otherwise seemed resilient. Marcus Webb struggled more. He'd lost his mother while captive, had no other family. He ended up in foster care. Agent Ramos kept tabs on him. She said he was surviving, but barely. The unnamed girl from foster care got adopted by a couple who specialized in trauma cases. Last I heard, she was doing well, learning to trust again. 2 of the other children committed suicide within 3 years of their release. One jumped from a bridge, the other overdosed on pills. The news reported them as tragedies. Ethan said they were murders. Sullivan killed them years ago. Their bodies, just didn't know it yet. He said he understood why they did it, said he'd thought about it too. That scared me more than anything. We had a conversation on the 5th anniversary of his rescue. Ethan was 21, legally an adult. He'd finished high school online. He'd started community college, but dropped out after 1 semester. He worked part-time at a bookstore, lived in the converted dining room, still hadn't moved out, wasn't ready. We were sitting on the back porch. Mom was inside cooking dinner. Dad was visiting for the weekend. He did that more often now, trying to rebuild what had been broken. Ethan looked at me and asked, "Do you ever wish I'd stayed gone?" The question hit me like a punch. What? No. Why would you ask that? He shrugged. Everyone's lives got ruined when I disappeared, he said. Mom and Dad divorced. You dropped out of college. Everything fell apart. Maybe it would have been better if I'd just stayed missing, if you'd all moved on. I grabbed his shoulder, turned him to face me. Listen to me, I said. My voice was shaking. Nothing about you being gone was better. Nothing? Yes. Everything fell apart, but it fell apart because we lost you, because we loved you, because we couldn't imagine a world where you weren't coming home. Your coming back didn't ruin our lives. It saved them. It gave us purpose again. It gave us hope. You being here is the only thing that makes any of the suffering worth it. He started crying. I pulled him into a hug. We stayed like that until Mom called us for dinner. At the table, Dad raised a glass. To 5 years, he said, to surviving, to family. We all drank. Ethan smiled for the first time in weeks. It was a small smile, fragile, but it was real. That night, I heard him laughing at something on TV. It was the first time I'd heard him laugh since he'd come home. It sounded like the brother I remembered, like maybe pieces of that kid at the birthday party were still in there somewhere. Ethan started college again at 23, psychology major. He said he wanted to understand trauma, wanted to help other survivors, wanted to turn his experience into something useful. He excelled this time. The structure worked for him. The purpose drove him. He made a friend, a girl in his study group who didn't know his story, who treated him like a normal person. They got coffee, studied together. She asked him out. He panicked, told her he couldn't. She asked why. He finally told her everything. She listened to all of it. Then she said, "Okay, that doesn't change anything. You're still the person I've been talking to for 3 months. You're still smart and funny and kind. Your past is part of you, but it's not all of you." They started dating. Ethan told me she made him feel human again, made him remember what it was like to connect with someone, to trust someone. It was the first healthy relationship he'd had since before Sullivan. The 10th anniversary of his rescue brought media attention again. Reporters wanted interviews, wanted to know where is he now. Ethan declined most of them, but he agreed to one. A documentary about survivors of long-term captivity. He wanted other people going through similar things to know they weren't alone. The interview was hard to watch. Ethan described things he'd never told us, details about the abuse, about the manipulation, about how Sullivan had convinced him for years that his family had forgotten him, that nobody was looking, that he'd been abandoned. The interviewer asked how he survived. Ethan said, "I survived because I kept a piece of myself hidden where he couldn't reach it. A piece that remembered Corey teaching me to ride a bike, that remembered Mom singing me to sleep, that remembered Dad building the treehouse. I held onto those memories like they were oxygen, and when I finally got that phone, I knew exactly who to call because I never stopped believing my brother would come for me. The call came 3 days after the documentary aired. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Then I remembered 10 years ago. Remembered another unknown number that changed everything. I answered, "Hello." Silence, then breathing. My blood ran cold. "This is Detective Sarah Reeves." A woman's voice said, "I'm calling about Ethan Parker." My heart stopped. "Is he okay? What happened?" "He's fine," she said quickly. "But we need to talk. We found something during a cold case review. Something that connects to his case. Can you come down to the station?" I went immediately. Detective Reeves met me in an interrogation room. She had files spread across the table, crime scene photos, documents, a laptop. She looked exhausted. "Mr. Parker," she said, "what I'm about to tell you is going to be difficult to hear. I need you to stay calm." She pulled up a photo on the laptop. It showed a room, concrete walls, mattresses on the floor, a furnace in the corner. It looked exactly like the room under Sullivan's garage, but it wasn't. "This photo was taken 6 months ago," Detective Reeves said, "from a property in the next county. We rated it based on a tip. Found 3 children ages 9, 12, and 14. All of them had been missing for years. When we processed the scene, we found something." She clicked to another photo. A wall covered in scratches, names, dates, details, just like Ethan's wall. But these notes were different. They referenced Sullivan. They referenced other locations. They referenced something called the program. Detective Reeves looked at me. "Your brother wasn't part of an isolated incident," she said. "He was part of a network. Sullivan wasn't working alone. He was one of many, and the program is still operating." My hands were shaking. "Does Ethan know?" "Not yet," she said. "We wanted to talk to you first. We need his help." The children we recovered mentioned someone called the coordinator. They said this person managed multiple houses, multiple handlers. Your brother's testimony took down Sullivan, but the coordinator is still out there, still operating. We need Ethan to look at the evidence, see if anything connects to his experience, see if he recognizes names or locations. I felt sick. "You want him to relive all of it again?" "I know what I'm asking," Detective Reeves said quietly. "But we have a chance to shut this entire network down to save dozens of children, maybe hundreds, but we can't do it without him." "I'll ask him," I said. "But if he says no, that's final. You don't pressure him, you don't guilt him." "Understood." "Understood," she said. Ethan said yes. Of course, he said yes. He'd spent 10 years documenting everything for this exact reason. He met with Detective Reeves and a team of FBI agents, including Ramos, who was now leading the task force. They showed him everything: photos, documents, testimony from the 3 recovered children. Ethan went through it methodically, pointed out connections, recognized coded language, identified patterns. "This location," he said, pointing at a property deed. "Sullivan took me there once. He called it a way station. Said it was for transitions, for moving kids between handlers. He showed them the scratches on his wall from the evidence photos. 'See this symbol?' he asked. 'It's not random. It's a marker.' Sullivan used it to denote high V-value targets, kids who were being groomed for specific buyers." The FBI agents exchanged looks. "How do you know this?" one asked. "Because he told me," Ethan said flatly. "He bragged about it. Thought it made him important. Thought it made him part of something bigger." The investigation expanded rapidly. Using Ethan's information, the FBI identified 6 more properties, raided them simultaneously, recovered 11 more children, arrested 4 more handlers. Each arrest led to more information, more connections. The network was massive, spanning multiple states, operating for over 30 years. Sullivan had been mid-level, a handler who managed long-term captives, but the coordinator remained elusive. Nobody knew their real identity. The handlers communicated through encrypted channels, used code names, never met in person. The coordinator was a ghost, but Ethan remembered something, a phone call he'd overheard. Sullivan arguing with someone using a name, not a code name, a real name. He told the FBI, they ran it, found a match. Patricia Holloway. Patricia, retired social worker, 68 years old. She'd worked in child services for 40 years, had access to thousands of vulnerable children, had recommended foster placements, had facilitated adoptions, had been trusted completely. The FBI arrested her at her home. She denied everything at first. Then they showed her the evidence, the financial records, the encrypted communications, the testimony from handlers who'd flipped. She broke, confessed to everything, said she'd started the program in the 1990s, said it began as a way to provide structure to children who'd fallen through the cracks, said it evolved into something else, something profitable, something monstrous. She gave up names, locations, clients. The FBI spent the next year dismantling the entire network. 63 arrests, 94 children recovered, remains of 41 children found at various properties. It was the largest child trafficking operation in U.S. history. Ethan's documentation had made it possible. His refusal to forget, his determination to remember every detail. Agent Ramos told him he'd saved more lives than any other witness she'd ever worked with. Ethan said he wished he'd saved more. The trials took 3 years. Ethan testified at 12 of them, each time breaking him a little more, each time forcing him to relive trauma he'd spent years trying to process. But each conviction helped. Each sentence gave him a sense of purpose. Patricia Holloway got life without parole. The 4 other handlers got similar sentences. Multiple clients were convicted. Rich men who'd paid 6 figures for access to children, celebrities, politicians, business leaders. The media called it a scandal. Ethan called it justice, but the toll on him was visible. He lost weight, stopped sleeping. His relationship ended. His girlfriend couldn't handle the constant media attention, the constant reminders of his trauma. She said she loved him but couldn't live in his shadow. Ethan understood, said he didn't blame her, but I could see it destroyed him. Another loss. Another thing stolen by Sullivan and the program. Mom retired from her job to take care of him full-time. Dad moved back from Oregon permanently. We became a family again, broken and rebuilt. Different than before, but together. Ethan finished his degree, got accepted into a graduate program for trauma counseling, started working with other survivors. He was good at it, better than any therapist he'd seen. He understood in ways others couldn't. He knew what it was like to be trapped, to be powerless, to be told you were worthless. He knew how to reach people who'd been through similar things, how to help them reclaim their humanity. He saved lives in a different way, quieter, more personal, but no less important. He told me once that Sullivan had tried to break him, tried to turn him into a number, into nothing, but he'd failed. Because even in that room, even with no name, Ethan had held on to one truth. He had a brother who would never stop looking for him, and that had been enough. 10 years after his rescue, Ethan opened a non-profit, an organization dedicated to supporting survivors of long-term captivity, providing therapy, legal assistance, job training, housing, everything the system failed to provide. He named it Seven's House. After the number Sullivan had given him, he reclaimed it, turned it into something meaningful. The organization grew quickly, expanded to multiple cities, helped hundreds of survivors rebuild their lives. Ethan became a voice for people who'd been silenced. He spoke at conferences, testified before Congress, pushed for better laws protecting vulnerable children, better oversight of foster systems, better training for social workers. He turned his trauma into advocacy, his pain into purpose. He told me once that Sullivan had wanted to destroy him. Instead, he'd created someone who would dedicate their life to destroying people like Sullivan. In the end, Ethan said, I won. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next